Good morning, everybody. Standing Stone Games with Update 66 has added Area of Effect bow attacks, and I am here to tell you that this is one of the greatest changes I've ever seen in the whole video game. I traditionally don't like ranged characters. I know, I'm the guy that literally wrote the Strimtom's Acid Arrow build many years ago. But Dungeons & Dragons Online has changed quite a bit since that time, and honestly, the playstyle of ranged characters really just doesn't appeal to me. One of the main ways in which the game has changed is the actual making of the game. When you run quests, monsters are now often dropped in these big balls, these big pods, where if you have Area of Effect, you can just blast through them, dealing huge amounts of damage and cleaving them down. But if you kind of don't have Area of Effect, you have to fight them all one at a time, and all of a sudden you're a level 10 character fighting against 6 1000 health monsters that just take forever to take down. Well, fear no more, as Standing Stone Games has just added Area of Effect attacks to bow characters, and this has been the smoothest Area of Effect leveling that I have had with a ranged character in a long time. The reason why it's so smooth is because before you had to use Improved Precise Shot, a feat that gave you AoE at the cost of making it very linear and waiting till level 11 and requiring 19 dexterity. All things I don't usually love. However, with this, you just get it at level 2 or level 3 or whatever early level and start blasting out monsters. Oh no, there's some kobolds. Who cares? You just get to blow them up as they just stand around you waiting for death. It is so difficult for me to actually explain how much better this feels. Like, fun is just the right word. All of a sudden, I don't feel frustrated when I get surrounded because I can just blast monsters right in their faces, even though it might seem like it's a bit unnecessary, and maybe it does homogenize the game a little bit in the sense that everybody having a little bit of AoE, that feels kind of weird. I feel like maybe people should have some more unique abilities, or there should be a couple more differences between some of the different characters that exist. Even at the end of the day, it's not worth the pain and suffering you have to go through of watching monsters just stand there and have so many hit points and have so many of them and they don't go down. I would much rather just have the Area of Effect attacks and make it be nice and smooth for everybody and the average player in the experience, and most especially me. With this character, I went Horizon Walker with some Arcane Archer here to get a lot of Area of Effect attacks. I multi-classed Paladin as well, because Paladin gives access to Exalted Smite, which is pretty good. Or not Exalted Smite, Exalted Cleave. I didn't take Exalted Smite, but Exalted Shot, which allows you to hit a monster and deal an AoE. And with all of that together, Scatter Shot, Inferno Shot from Arcane Archer, Exalted Shot from Knight of the Chalice, 3 Area of Effect attacks for leveling. It was so smooth. You're just blowing up packs and it felt great. But nothing prepared me for what I was going to feel when I got all the way up into the level cap and started using Dire Charge with a bow. Oh my goodness gracious. Pressing Dire Shot and watching every monster fall down, stunning huge packs at range with a bow. I was just laughing and yelling and kicking and screaming. It was so much fun. On so many occasions, I just couldn't help myself. It was so different. These changes make leveling ranged characters so much more fun. Well, at least specific ranged characters. And by specific, I mean bow, and also crossbow if you're an artificer. Unfortunately, if you're a thrower, you don't really have any easy options to get access to ranged Area of Effect attacks, which is unfortunate during the leveling process. Yeah, there's a bunch of epics, but still, it'd be nice if there was some kind of more neutral generic option. Maybe a feat that is like cleave adjacent and it requires point blank shot. So it could be called like, I don't know, impact shot or something like that does a cleave that anybody could take. Maybe something like that would be cool. Or maybe SSG will continue to convert other abilities in the future. But oh my goodness, at least right now for me, I had so much fun with this. And I can recommend Archer to everyone. Everyone. If just don't even like finish the video. Just go play an Archer right now. Unless you don't know how to play an Archer, then maybe you want to continue with the video. But it was just so fun. It was absolutely fantastic. They didn't fix all of the problems that archers have to deal with during the leveling process. Of course, if you do get monsters kind of being squirrely right next to your character, it can be very difficult to actually land that shot, as when you're trying to line it up and hit them, if they're moving too far left and right, you won't always hit. And this doesn't feel quite as good as playing a pure spellcaster, as you can't target your Area of Effect attacks at the ground and hit multiple monsters. You actually do need a final target, and so if monsters are moving too quickly, then even though they might be in a big pack, if the arrow can't land with one of them, maybe you're not going to actually be doing anything. Whereas with the fireball, you just kind of have to throw it and then it just hits everybody anyway. So you don't have that like direct convenience factor. So I'm not going to say it is as fast and simple as leveling a spellcaster, especially because during the leveling process, I grouped with quite a few alchemists and sorcerers at different occasions, and yeah, they still level faster. So we're not talking it's that fast. But the night and day difference and the improvement that I felt when I had to run solo or just around other monsters, it felt so good. Now, I did want to clear up a couple things that some people were confused about with the area of effect attacks. A lot of people think that secondary effects don't apply. So for example, if you have paralyzing arrows from Arcane Archer, and that's turned on, and then you use an area of effect attack, people think that it won't work. It definitely does. If you have paralyzing arrows turned on, and then you shoot a monster with an area of effect attack, anything that gets hit will have to save or be paralyzed. It's very good. I personally did not use that because I went for more of a damage approach, but I did play with other archers who did, and it's very cool when you can just lock down an entire room with 2 single arrows by using 2 different area of effect attacks, which is pretty cool. Additionally, the area of effect attacks in epics are in fact area of effect attacks and take all of their secondary effects. So Pin, if you use it out of Shirati Champion, will hold in place the monsters you hit and all the monsters around it, which is pretty good. Legendary Dreadnought with Dire Shot will stun and knock down all of the monsters that are nearby. So as a result, your character picks up a ton of utility. And to me, that's kind of one of the most impactful things here. The utility is really a huge element of it. Ranged characters have always had pretty reasonable damage, but now with the utility, you're able to stun monsters, slow monsters, paralyze monsters in that nice area of effect without having to line up something with improved precise shot, which is sometimes very difficult to use if you don't have control of where the monsters are going. Now you can allow a melee or a tank or somebody else to run in front of you and then just hit the ball of monsters that forms around them and get a lot of effectiveness out of it. Overall, this change has completely affected how I enjoy ranged characters, and I am so absolutely excited to play around with Artificer now, the next character that got a bunch of ranged attacks that are area of effect. Hopefully it's going to be a lot of fun, and we will see then. Now, in this video, the character that I did play is not free to play, so I will have a guide for that, but I'm also going to be posting along with this a updated Strimtom's Acid Arrow for modern times. So if you haven't had the chance to play around with the Strimtom's Acid Arrow before, you don't have to worry about going to find the old build guide. In the one posted below will be both the free-to-play Strimtom's Acid Arrow, updated for the modern update U66 era, as well as my build I'm currently playing right here. And if you want to learn more about that, pay attention to me with the build. Archery has never felt better, and if you want to play the best archer you can, don't wait. Do it today, because things could change in the future, and it just feels so good right now. This character is mostly a ranger, being built entirely upon ranger here. Ranger doing the big backbone, a little bit of paladin and rogue mixed in. Of course, you can play pure ranger, and there will be a link for a free-to-play build using pure ranger. But this, I just wanted to multi-class and see what it was about. Basically, I'm a dex build. All dex, that's the main stat, with the other stats here. Paladin is for fear immunity, disease immunity, and a little bit of extra saving throws from my charisma. And Rogue is because I had extra levels and I didn't know what to take, so I thought doing traps would be kind of cool. So, as a result, since I have some intelligence, we get all of the different trapping skills appropriate to this character. If you're wondering what race you need to pick, I went with Drow Elf because I wanted dex for like damage and stuff, intelligence for traps and skills, and charisma for the paladin things. But if you don't care about that, just pick another race. It honestly doesn't really matter that much. Now, as far as the feats go, I wish I could give you more insight, but you basically just take all of the ranged feats. So you get fortunately from Ranger, you get improved precise shot, many shot, and precise shot, and rapid shot for free. However, I also took point blank shot because it's really good. You also want to take shot on the run, at least I personally do it, because it gives you less penalty when moving and also some ranged power, as well as dodge, mobility, improved critical ranged, and the meta magic feat, quicken spell. So I did take a lot of those extra feats. And then in epics and for the Destiny feats, you take stuff like double shot, holy strike, embodiment of law, legendary aim. It's just a bunch of solid damage and some extra imbue dice, as well as combat archery, which is essential for bow type characters, and then overwhelming critical for some damage, watchful eye for some extra double shot, and the ability to automatically detect traps, which is just convenient, and some damage reduction. As far as the spells go, you don't get paladin spells, but you get ranger spells, and most of these don't really matter. Your first level spells are the best, giving you like Ram's Might, Jump, and I use Resist Energy, or instead of Resist Energy, you could also just use Swim if you wanted. Doesn't really matter that much. I only took Cure, the rest of the spells don't matter here. Wild Instincts gives you extra Spot and Listen, which is convenient because Listen is good for Horizon Walker stuff if you're playing this version as opposed to the free Ranger version, which doesn't care about that. And then just Spot, which is good for seeing stuff. And then, of course, Freedom of Movement, which is great. And then I took the Cures, which was just nice to have. Now, the the enhancement points, this is the bread and butter of the character. Why do you talk about AoE Ranger? This ability, Elemental Inferno, is an area of effect attack. You shoot an enemy and it does an explosion around the target, dealing damage to the target and in an AoE. And not just the damage of the ability, where it says it puts a damage over time on them. It does the whole damage of the whole attack. It's like how when you hit cleave and you hit all the monsters in front of you, dealing your sword damage to all the monsters, it's just like that. So Elemental Inferno is an area of effect attack. Exalted Shot is an area of effect attack. Scatter Shot is an area of effect attack. And since I started with Ranger pretty close to the beginning, you get Elemental Inferno at a very early level. So you get Elemental Inferno, and then all of a sudden, ba-boom, 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 you're taking down individual monster packs like it's nothing. Ripping through kobolds and heroics, then you move into the hobgoblins, bandits, doesn't matter, they die to your area of effect. The thing you have to keep in mind is that this costs 6 spell points. And that's the hardest part about it. During the leveling process, you will want to make sure you have spell points, either by putting points into Energy of the Wild, maybe having some wisdom or some wisdom items. You got to figure that out. But if you can manage the spell point cost of it, boy howdy is this very powerful. So that's one of the reasons why I actually did start with a little bit of wisdom. I think I had a 14 here. So I got a little bit more spell points, and then both Rangers and Paladins get spell points based off of their wisdom. So I had some extra spell points in the back end, so I could just cast this freely. However, out of Paladin, you also get Exalted Shot, which has no cost to it, and it's an area of effect attack. And then Horizon Walker also grants you the AoE. So those kind of 3 things come together. It's pretty powerful there. Now, if you're watching this video and you're playing this version of the build, this is how I kind of have it set up. Horizon Walker is really good, lots of good stats. Everything in here is really good and pretty self-explanatory. Like, this gives damage. This is an area of effect attack. This gives damage. That says damage on it. So, like, really straightforward stuff. Vistani is so you get Action Boost Haste, because Action Boost Haste is like one of the best things for bow characters. Now, the Chalice over here, granting Exalted Shot, which is pretty nice. You don't need this in Epics, I'm going to be honest. You could probably drop it in Epics because you get a lot of extra AoE attacks. But I did use it in Heroics, and I actually still use this in Epics, but I just don't think it's entirely necessary. Past level 20. And then Assassin here for the extra Imbue dice, because I wanted some extra damage. If you're playing the free-to-play version of this character that I will have posted, you will see that I am using Deepwood Stalker instead, because you don't own Vistani, you don't own Horizon Walker, and this character generally uses mostly Deepwood Stalker for 2 reasons. 1, Deepwood Stalker is just really strong and has a lot of damage, a lot of defense. It's a very powerful tree. But 2, it has Devastating Shot, an area of effect attack that's an automatic critical strike. So you shoot an attack, it auto-crits everything, and bows do a lot of crit damage in an explosion that just wrecks everybody, and it can also blind monsters. So if they live, they're blind. It's fantastic. It's very powerful. And once you get this, also this has no cost. It's just a 12-second cooldown. You can just be spamming this and feeling very, very good about it. So it's a powerful ability. So you'll be using mostly Deepwood Stalker and Arcane Archer. The build will have that information for you. As far as the actual path through these trees, in all cases, you start with this. This setup of Arcane Archer is what I would start with no matter what. Get these points first. Arcane Archer is just way too good in terms of getting the Imbue here with the Shocking. I use Shocking Arrows. Acid Arrow obviously was the name of the build, so you can use Acid instead. I just thought Shocking looked cool, so I took that. There's no visual, so you can go with Acid. It's going to be better most of the time. But yeah, you just want to get the extra Imbue dice because this gives you a lot of damage. Bows don't really do a lot of damage right away, but this adds a lot of flat damage, so it's really nice to have onto your attacks. And then after that, if you're playing as this build, then you would want to go into some of the Knight of the Chalice here, picking up the Exalted Shot, going into Horizon Walker, filling out the damage, and then last going into Assassin and Vistani Night Fighter later on, once you've already filled out everything else. And if you're playing the free version, then get Arcane Archer, get all of this stuff, and then go into Deepwood Stalker and fill out that part of the tree. And that's generally how you do it in terms of that order. Whereas this stuff ends up being more high yield right away. This Arcane Archer stuff is really good. Important thing to remember about this character is that for this build in particular, in heroics, the elemental arrows are good. It's very easy to get spell power, and it does a lot of damage. However, in epics, ranged power is just thrown at you. You get millions of ranged power without doing anything, and it is going to heavily eclipse your spell power, which is why in epics I swapped to Slayer of Evil, because this does light damage, which is harder to resist, and it scales off range power 200%, which is much better when you have lots of it in epics. Again, when I got to level 20, I think I had like 30 or 40 range power, and now standing around I have 183, which is significantly better because you just get 6 range power per level, so an extra 72 just for leveling up, which is huge. And each of these little core effects here on your Epic Destinies also give you a bunch, and then you also get bonuses from other places, so range power is pretty plentiful. As far as Epic Destiny goes, I think that Shrouded Champion is going to be kind of the king here. Just for, especially for like this type of bow character, you get a lot of extra utility from things like track. The extra imbue dice is nice. Hunt's End now just being an attack means you can combine this with something else for some extra damage. So you can use this attack and hit enemies, and it's basically your one shot. I shoot a button and something dies. And then you can still take something for the utility. If you're doing this build here, I recommend Dire Shot because Dire Charge, super duper powerful. It basically lets you AoE knockdown and stun everything, and it's super strong. I love this. I had a lot of fun with this. In fact, when I get it, when I got this in Epics, there were so many situations where I was laughing and cackling to myself on camera because it was so fun to just blast guys and watch them all get knocked down by my AoE bow attack. It felt amazing. If you're doing the free-to-play version, it's much harder to get the tactics DC. It's borderline impossible, actually. So this really isn't going to work for you. So in that case, I'm going to be recommending Pin. Pin is a lot better for that circumstance because it's going to work a lot more frequently. Or if you don't like Pin because you just don't like the playstyle of your AoE attack, then you also will have the attack out of Shadow Dancer for Shadow Strike, which has no crowd control, but it just does a shitload of damage, and sometimes that's good enough. As it turns out, just hitting guys and, killing them in one hit, maybe that's better than doing crowd control because you crowd control them by putting them on the floor, which is usually pretty good. As far as equipment goes, a lot of the stuff that you're going to use is pretty straightforward. For bows, I didn't use anything special. I use like the level 2 nicked longbow. You can get that from the Sharn Syndicate chain, which is pretty early. It's like a level 4 quest chain. And then I got the Barovian bow, which you get from Ravenloft for free by talking to a guy. And then I used the Epic Ethereal Longbow for level 20, which you get Borderline for free from doing the Borderlands. So I didn't use any special bows. I just used like the free ones, and it was very, very powerful. And then other than that, you're looking for like dexterity items, because dexterity is your main stat. Constitution items, because constitution is for health. Sheltering is pretty good, reduces the damage you take. Things that have spell points you're going to want for the Elemental Inferno, so like one item that gives you wizardry or extra spell points, which is pretty convenient. Wisdom also does that, which is nice, and it affects your will saves, something I can think about. Dodge is good, considering your character is going to be wearing either light armor or no armor all the time. Even though if you're multi-classing with Paladin, you get access to heavier armors, you still want to wear light or no armor pretty much all the time. And so I'm wearing clothing, so I don't have any armor bonuses, but my dodge is pretty high, and it feels pretty good most of the time. Then you want to go get the damage stats: Seeker, Deception, Accuracy, Deadly. These are all pretty good. They just increase your damage with all of your attacks. Additionally, if you're leveling in Heroics, make sure you have the spell power for your elemental imbue that you choose. So if you do like me and you picked shock arrows, then have a lightning spell power item. If you pick like acid arrows, have an acid spell power item. If you pick force arrows, have a force spell power item for whichever one you use. It doesn't matter. You just have to have the spell power for the one that you decided to click on. And if you're trapping like I am, a great low-level trapping item is like the leather gloves of the snake, and you can get this from Kind of a Big Deal. And then I upgraded at 26, because I started to run into problems at 26, to the Legendary Green Steel that I have here, which gives me plus 33 to all of my stats. So now I can disable device on anything, which is very, very convenient. But yeah, gearing, like I said, general health, damage, dex, stuff like that. Also, some of you might think you can save 2 points by not taking Conjure Arrow, but just buying arrows. You can do that. You can just get a quiver. You can get them from any missile weapon shop, or if you get House Beneath Favor, you can get that as well. So you can get the quiver there and just use arrows, and you save yourself 2 enhancement points. Um, but you know what? Just spend the 2 enhancement points because if you don't, it's gonna get real old buying arrows real fast. And so these are infinite. They have 100% returning, so you don't have to worry about it. They just come back, and it's pretty nice. Anyways, that's all I have for you today when it comes to the Archer build. So thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, play Archer right now. Normally I'd be like, subscribe or like the video. Dude, I don't even care. It's so fun. This was so fun. I've played so many bad range characters because it just feels brutal to level. Yeah, it's cool to press a button and watch your character do 100,000 damage to an enemy at endgame, sure. But I need like 30 to 40 hours of gameplay before I get to that point. Whereas here, oh my god, it was so much fun. I just ripped through the game. Please go play Archer. Go play a ranged character. Do it today. Archery, archery, do it.